And we talked about different ways of breaking out of normal flow. We talked about floats and clears, talked about some different things there. One in particular that we can use is called positioning types. And positioning types is really interesting. Let's go to our navigation here. We're going to use the word position. And there's multiple position types you can see here: absolute, fixed, relative, static, sticky. And by default, everything gets the static positioning. Every HTML element that you've used up to this point, or been familiar with, is using static positioning. And so it's not really, we don't have to use that unless we're turning off some positioning, but we're going to use another one, and this one's called relative, okay? Now when we're using relative, we can take this item, this page here, and we can move this item, our navigation, around relative to where it is right now. Okay, so I'm going to go say, we want to say top 100 pixels and left 100 pixels. Once you turn on another type of positioning, you can start using this top and left and things like that. Everything other than static. And you can see this example here now where it was right here, but now we went over 100 and down 100. And again, that's relative position for you. So if we take off the top and left, it just stays where it was, relative to where it's supposed to be. And we haven't really, added or taken away anything. And so it's kind of a handy way of moving items around. Now another one we can use is called fixed. And fixed, let's go up here and we're going to say the width is going to be 100%. What we're going to do now is we're going to fix this bar up to the top. Now when you use the fixed positioning, it's not based on a relative position where it would have shown up. It now pulls itself completely out of normal flow. Everything collapses in on itself, and it puts itself and fixes it up with the viewport essentially. And as you scroll, it stays in the same place, which is really kind of cool. Okay, so that's one thing you can do with fixed. If you've ever seen like a page curl up at the top, or where it says scroll to something or something along those lines, it basically fixes it to the window and all of your content goes behind it. It's kind of a cool thing you can do. Another thing you can do that's kind of fun is you can make this now sticky. And sticky means it's going to stay in its spot where it's supposed to be until it scrolls out of the screen and then goes to a certain position. So let me just show you this and then you can see what I mean. So we're in its normal spot where it should be, and when I scroll up and I hit that top, then it stays kind of like a fixed element does. And this is what you call sticking. It's primarily designed for menuing systems that want to keep their menus at the top once you've scrolled out of the page. Previous to this, in order to accomplish this type of functionality, you had to have something in JavaScript to say, once I scroll down beyond a certain pixel, then fix my menuing item up to the top. But the CSS sticky tag is now taken care of that. It makes it a lot cleaner. The last one I'm going to show you, and probably the most difficult to understand, is called absolute positioning. And in order to work on this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take our main tags and I'm going to apply a background color to them. Okay, so we'll go to main and we'll give a background color, and then let's just do like a light blue or something in here. That you can see that showing up now. Okay, this area down here, and then we're also going to go to our fig caption and we're going to give it a background color, and we're going to give it, I don't know, a slightly darker blue. Okay, and that did not really come around our figure very well. Oh, that was our fig caption, sorry. Probably I want that around our figure. Okay, that should look a little bit better. Nope, not at all. Let's add some padding so we can see that a little bit easier. There you go. Now this should show up here, this figure, in its position. I should probably also take off its margin. It does have a margin applied to it. Okay, so it shows up here. And we are going to apply position absolute to this. Okay, and we'll refresh it. Now, a couple things happen. You'll notice it stayed where it was supposed to go, but it also pulled itself out of normal flow and everything else came behind it. Now, let's take this a step further and we're going to say top 0 pixels, left 0 pixels. And I refresh it, and you notice it came up here now. Okay, so what this is doing is it's looking at an element and basing itself off of that, basing itself not off of the viewport, because when I scroll up and down it moves, but basing it off of the root element, and the root element is our HTML tags. Now it goes further than that. It doesn't base itself necessarily off the root, but bases itself off of the element with relative or absolute position applied to it, that it's its parent. So what that means is over here in our HTML, if we look at our figure, its direct parent is the main tag. And if the main tag does not have relative or absolute position applied to it, then it looks at the next tag and it goes up to this wrapper. And if it has relative or something applied to it, then it tries to adjust itself there. So and then if it doesn't, then it goes back to body. If that doesn't, then it goes back to HTML. But let's look at these. Okay, we're going to first go to the wrapper, and we're going to go to this ID wrapper. It's up here at the top, and I'm going to change its position to be relative. So it stays where it's supposed to go, stay where it's supposed to stay, but now has relative position applied to it. And I refresh that, and you see how this moved. So it's now basing its position off the wrapper. Now let's take that off. And let's go to the next one. Let's go to main. And I'm going to apply that position relative to main. And we'll refresh that. And now you can see it's come down here. So again, the best way to explain absolute positioning is that it looks at the parent with absolute or relative position applied to it and bases its position off of that. And hopefully that made sense. Hopefully these examples made a little bit of sense to you on that. I've got one here. You can see normal static positioning. Everything is static. It's fine. When I change it to relative 40 by 40, it moves out of the position where it would have been relative to where it'd be in normal flow. Absolute will move itself off the top. And again, that's because the most parent, if you don't have a parent with relative or absolute position applied to it, it goes off the root tag. And then you can also see sticky here, where when I scroll, it stays. And that's a lot like fixed, but I don't have an example of fixed here. But I think everybody understood when we did. We put fixed up there and it went across the entire screen. Now these positioning types can be really tricky if you don't know what you're doing. And so what I tell students is just focus on normal flow. That's your best bet. And then if you understand how to use relative and absolute and you're very well versed in them, you can branch out to those in special occasions when you need them. I wouldn't get super comfortable where you're using them all the time. They tend to cause more problems than they solve. But with young students, I'd almost recommend staying away from them if you have to. But they are really powerful when you do need them, and really great. So hopefully that helped you guys out and made a little bit of sense.